Welcome back, everyone. Today is going to be more of a chill video. I want to sit here and talk to you guys. I want to talk to you about 10 things that I've learned about hi-fi, about high-end audio, about audio over the last 40 years. I've been doing this for 40 years now. So these are the 10 things. Some of them have taken me 38 years to learn. So I'm going to read off these 10 things. We're just going to go number 1 through 10. They're in no particular order. They all mean something, to me anyway. So let's get started. One thing I've learned over the years, and I've swayed in and out of this over the years and got myself into trouble, which I'll talk about briefly, is to me the most important thing about all of this and what started it for me was the music. You know, as a teenager, I remember getting my driver's permit and driver's license at 15, my driver's permit. At 16, I had my driver's license, and I would drive around, and I had an okay stereo in my car. It wasn't anything high-end or high quality, but it had pretty good thumping, loose, floppy bass that I really got into. And I was like, oh, I love this music. I love this music. And before long, I was in a store, an electronics store at the time, and I remember seeing a slew of stereos back when they mostly sold them at these stores. They were like a rack system with the wood side cabinets and the 2 speakers, and they would be priced anywhere from, say, $700 up to $1,800. And the first one I was able to get was around the $1,500 range. And man, I would just buy records every single week, and I would sit in my room and listen to that music. And it wasn't any kind of a high-end system. I didn't have it set up for any kind of imaging. I didn't even know what imaging was at the time. I had one speaker in one corner of my room, the other in the other corner, and I just wanted to fill the space with music. And I have memories of those times, vivid memories of just enjoying myself, listening to the music. And as a teenager, I had a couple of really good friends, but I was more of a loner. So I stayed home a lot, and I had a room in the basement, and I had a turntable, 2 speakers, that rack system, and I would always play record after record, and I would spend my nights mostly in my room listening to music. And today, 40 years later, I am here still enjoying the music. And in between those years, as I was buying high-end audio and buying systems and trying to improve the system in the 90s even, it became for me more about the gear. And I still love the gear today. That's why I have this channel. But I have to take a look back at when the focus became about the gear. I was buying, selling, trading, losing money left and right constantly on this audio gear in the 90s. And I became frustrated, and this hobby turned sour for me for a while. And there was a year that I just didn't listen to any music because I forgot the reasons of why I got into this hobby. It's always about the music. And as human beings, I strongly believe we are somehow hardwired to really soak in music, and I believe it can enrich our lives in so many ways. And I'm going to touch on that here in this video about something really, really cool on ways it can touch our lives and improve our lives. But music, it's always about the music first and foremost. So when you build a system, make sure that system sounds good with music you enjoy and music that you listen to. There's one more thing I'll touch on this point is there's times in my high-end audio journey of these 40 years where I built systems that only sounded good with audiophile music. And some of that audiophile music I didn't like. It was boring to me. But I was stuck listening to these because when I would play the songs I liked, they sounded basically not very good. So make sure when you build a system, build it around the music, not around what looks good to your eye. So being a gear reviewer here, I know that sounds weird, but I do love the gear, and gear is very important once you're setting up a serious system, but always make it about the music, and then you'll never go wrong. So moving right along, I hinted on it in number 1. Are there health benefits? Benefits to our well-being from listening to high-quality music. I tried something interesting. I don't use ChatGPT, but I downloaded it a couple of days ago just to ask a question. What are the health benefits of listening to high-quality music? And within a second, on my phone, it came out with this long article discussing all of the health benefits of listening to music. It was crazy. I actually posted it as a page on my website and published it. I'll link to it in the description below if you want to see what AI told me music does for our well-being and health. But it's pretty remarkable that that came out. And as I was reading it, I was like, yeah, yeah. So I have the article here on my phone right now. I'm just going to give you a few of the brief talking points here. Enhanced emotional well-being. And then it goes on to explain how it affects our well-being. Mood regulation. I sometimes when I'm stressed, I come back here, I sit back for an hour listening session, and that stress is just melted away. Emotional expression, improved cognitive function. High quality music is not just emotionally stimulating, it can also provide cognitive benefits. The brain processes music in complex ways, and it goes on to tell details about this. Memory enhancement, focus and concentration improvement, deepened appreciation of musical complexity. I'll link to this article in the description if you want to read it on my website. But listening to high quality music in a system that's taken me 38, 40 years to find and set up, that's another story for another day. But just music, high quality music listening in general. You don't need a big high end, big money system to enjoy this. Just that immersive experience for me, it lowers my stress. It eases my mind. I believe it does make me in a better mood, put me in a better mood. It uplifts me. Anytime I come out of this room after an hour or two of listening, I feel refreshed and I feel great and I feel happy. So yeah, music can actually bring, high quality listening can bring improvements to our health. And I've noticed these things and I was surprised that the AI brought back all this information. It's pretty cool. Now, this one may be controversial because some people love this. I'm just not a fan. And just because I'm not a fan doesn't mean you shouldn't experience this on your own. I'm just talking about my personal journey and experience. So over these 40 years, when I first started listening, it was albums and cassette tapes. Some of you guys know the drill with that. And later in life, we got into CDs. In the 90s, I was always searching for the cool CD players. I remember my favorite was a Carry Audio 306-200. Beautiful, beautiful machine. As the years and decades passed, we're now into streaming. We still have analog and vinyl that some people love to death. It's more of a ritualistic experience. But for digital streaming, we have that today, and that is becoming very, very big. And with this digital streaming, we now have the capability to surpass CD resolution. Back in the day, CDs were the rave, like, ooh, they're so crystal clear, they're so amazing in sound, and that was 1644. That's what a lot of audiophiles today consider low res, but it's not. It's all we need when listening to music. High res for me just never hit the mark. I've tried it all. I've tried upsampling through HQ Player in Roon. I've tried DACs that do fancy upsampling. I've tried streaming songs that I've bought from HD Tracks, and I stream Tidal high res. But at the end of the day, 90% of my listening is done with Spotify, which is just 1644, which is the same as CD resolution. Now, why is that? When I have all of these things at my disposal, being a reviewer, I'm able to get a hold of all kinds of things. I could listen to the finest high-res music that there is, but I choose to listen to Spotify. I stream Spotify most of the time. Why is this? Well, it goes back to my number one point. It's all about the music. And Spotify, to me, offers the greatest music and new artist discovery of any of the streaming apps. I own Tidal, I pay Tidal, I pay for Qobuz, I pay for Spotify. I have a Roon subscription. But Spotify is what I use most because it sounds better to me than Tidal. And the music discovery is so easy and so fluid. And I've been able to discover so much new music through Spotify. Now you can do this through Tidal and other apps and Roon. Roon is really good for that as well. But I feel Roon is for people who serve music or have a library or a hard drive with tons of music on it. It's really overkill for streaming Tidal and Qobuz, and Roon doesn't even offer Spotify support. Just my opinion. Spotify has more of an organic tube-like flow to it than something like Tidal. And I prefer that flow. That's part of what de-stresses me. So I've never been a believer or user or consumer of all this high-res music. A lot of people who have come to the belief that if you're not streaming high-res music, you have a crappy system, or you don't need a high-end DAC if you're streaming Spotify. That is absolute nonsense. I'll tell you right now, I have the Nagra HDX DAC in the system right now. This is a DAC that retails for $72,000. Absurd to me. But I gotta tell you, I've never heard sound ever like I'm hearing with this DAC in the system. And Spotify sounds incredible because this DAC, it upsamples internally to DSD 256, but it puts some magic into the way the music comes out. I just can't believe what it sounds like. If you're getting started in audio, don't worry so much about downloading or having to buy high-res tracks. Yes, if you use HQ Player and upsample through Roon into a really good DAC, you can get some of that extra refinement and layering going on. But at the end of the day, it's not worth stressing over that. Again, I've been in this 40 years. And what I've learned is just enjoy the music. And if it sounds good, that's all you need, right? And yeah. All right, we're going to move right into the next one. And this one might be controversial to some too. And I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone here. This is just my personal things. And that's the beauty of audio. We each have our personal likes, dislikes. We each love our own kind of style of music and presentations and brands, right? But for me, I've never, well, I can't say never. In the 90s, I did. These days, especially, I don't ever look or have any interest in measurements of audio gear. Now, I know magazines like Stereophile, Absolute Sound, there's websites, reviewers, YouTube reviewers, they do measurements. And I know there's a lot of people who like to look at that stuff, but to me, it's 1000% unimportant and doesn't matter. I do measure. I measure when I have gear in here. I do measure the gear, but with the ears. I've said this quite a few times in videos over the years. Our ears should be, and they are, the best measuring tool that we have for hi-fi audio products. There is no measurement, scientific measurement with equipment that will ever tell us what a piece of gear will sound like in our room with our associated gear, with our cables, with our speakers, etc., etc. It's just not possible. And so many people, I see so many people say, well, I'm not buying this because look at that measurement. There's one amp, I'm not going to say the name. I had it here a while ago. It's a very popular amplifier. It's said to bring perfection in an amp. You shouldn't need any other amplifier. It measures perfectly, right? I put it in the system and it sounded good, but it was a little sterile. It was a little bleached. And I'm like, what is this music? This is perfect measuring? No, I go back to my non-perfect measuring amplifier any day of the week. So don't go by the measurements always. Sure, there are some pieces of gear that are just awful and bad and will measure poorly, but judge it with your ears. You know, that's what I always do. If you buy from a reputable dealer, or say you're buying affordable hi-fi on Amazon, try something that measures poorly and see for yourself. Return it if you don't like it, you know? So I never go by measurements because for me, they were never accurate into how a piece of audio gear sounded in my space or my room. If I read a review in Stereophile, I don't look at the measurements. If I watch a YouTube reviewer and they talk about measurements, I turn off the video because to me, that doesn't matter. But I understand there are many of you out there that take these measurements very importantly. And if you do that, that's fine. That's wonderful. You're doing what you like to do. You're taking your own journey. I'm just giving you my experience. So these days, I don't ever look at measurements. It never comes into play. And I've never had a bad experience or regret buying a piece of gear that sounded bad because it measured bad. I just haven't had that experience. But I had the other experience. I had to send back that other piece of gear that measured perfectly because it sounded not so hot, and I sent it back. There's tons of people who love that amplifier. I'm just not one of them. So measurements for me, I don't really look at them. There's two ways when you build a music system to listen to music. There's that way back when I was 15, 16, and I had it in my room and I put a speaker on each corner of the wall and I laid in my bed and I just wanted to hear the music, the drive, the beat, the rhythm, right? And then there's another way of listening as you get into the high-end realm where you pull these speakers away, you dial them into your ears, you set everything up meticulously. And when you sit in that one chair, maybe love seat even, that is designed to give you the maximum experience from the system, that's when you hear the three-dimensionality, the instruments in their correct place in the stage, the layering, the textures. So there's a way to build a system as background noise, party, just chilling, and there's a way to build a system for serious critical listening. And what I talk about on this channel is the serious critical listening because 40 years later now from where I started, that's the stage I am in. That doesn't mean that's the stage you're in, but when I talk about sound stage depth, layers, all of that stuff, that's because I'm talking about a system that's set up for critical listening. So if you're someone new to audio and you want to build a high-end system, ask yourself, do you want just something to play music in the house as you're working, as you're cleaning, as you're just chilling out? Or do you want a system that will be focused to one listening spot and bring you the maximum amount of information and maximum amount of enjoyment and immersiveness, right? I go for immersiveness. So if you want to build a party system, a background system, that's easy. Get a couple of Bluetooth speakers these days and put them in your room. But if you want to build an immersive system, this is what I talk about. So you're going to need your amplifier, your integrated amplifier, your amps if you're going separate. It's a preamp if you're going separate. It's a streamer, a DAC, your cabling, your speakers, the room, the space. You don't have to have a dedicated room, but you have to set them up for that immersive listening experience. So when I started, I had no idea about any of this stuff. And it was not until I started losing a bunch of money in high-end audio by buying the wrong gear that I was like, wow, okay, so there is something to this. There's something more than just having music playing throughout your house. It can be very magical and very special. So know up front if you want what kind of system you want, and that'll make it easier as you go forward. All right, let's move on. Sometimes on this channel, I talk about gear that costs a heck of a lot of money. I just mentioned I have a DAC here that retails for $72,000. That's absurd. That's insane. I don't even know how that's a thing, but there are DACs that cost probably double of what that one costs on the market today. With that said, I've also talked about products here that cost very low money. The WIM series of products, $300 for an amp, $300 for a streamer and DAC. And they sound good, right? They're very good sounding, but they're not of the magical variety. But over the years, I've had systems that cost a total of $2,500, and I'm talking in the last 20 years, and I've had systems that cost up to $75,000. I'm not counting this DAC here right now. But of those, I've enjoyed music in the lower cost systems, and I've enjoyed it in the higher cost systems. You don't have to spend a lot of money to enjoy the music. That you just don't. But if you want the magic, if you want that experience, the immersiveness, all of that good stuff, that does tend to cost some money, and you have to buy the high quality products to get there. So it depends on where you're at in life, where you are with your budget, what you're looking for, what your end goal is. But you can build a system for a couple of $1,000s that sounds really, really good in your bedroom, in your office, in your living room. Most of us, I believe, start small and build up. That's how I've been able to do it for all of these years. You finally, over the last, I'd say, decade, I was able to acquire pieces, sell them, upgrade, acquire, trade in, upgrade, sometimes buying used, right, in good condition. You can save a fortune on gear. But you don't have to spend money, especially to start. Just start small and see where you are. You might not even like the hobby. So I suggest, if you're starting in the hobby, to start small. Maybe look at WIM, maybe look at Ever Solo. I'll put some links in the description to some of my favorite products in the lower price bracket. I've talked about them in my best of 2024 video already, though, so you might want to look at that one if you missed it. But yeah, you don't have to spend a fortune. Spending a fortune on audio comes from my experience talking to people in audiophiles and having friends that are audiophiles. It seems to come later in life. You know, I'm 55 now, so I've been able to, throughout life, save some money, acquire some nice gear, and I'll tell you, I'll give you a little sneak peek right now. This year, over the next month, I'm going to be changing this room up and the system up dramatically. So there's going to be a new cabinet. There's going to be all new gear here. The speakers will remain. My Pure Audio Project Duet 15s right here. I love these speakers to death. They are staying. But yeah, so start small, and then over time, as you get old like me, you can build up to the stuff that is, you know, maybe even your dream pieces. So that's one more thing I learned. You don't have to be a millionaire or rich to enjoy this hobby. Let's move on. Another thing I've learned over the last 40 years is, while I'd say 95% of audio companies, even the small ones who are working their butt off with passion, trying to make a product to offer it to the consumers, most of these companies, all companies, are really good companies and their heart is in it. But there's that 2, 3, 4% out there that are always going to be out there trying to take advantage or scam. There's been a lot of products over the years, over the last 30 years I've seen, in the 90s especially, and I tried a lot of them, that promised things from their product that just didn't deliver. Now, I know a lot of people believe in these, and I've tried them over the years. Heck, I even made my own at one time. They looked like stones. Cable lifters, right? Cable lifters were said to bring enhanced clarity, less interference, because the cables are lifted off the floor, and people still use them today, and there's people who buy them. I tried several cable lifters through life, and while they can get them off the floor and give them a neat appearance, don't put any stock into changing the sound. I never heard any change in sound from lifting cables off the floor. There are devices you can set on your amplifier that look like stones that are said to improve the sound. There's metal discs that look like gongs you can place in your room, and they are said to enhance the reverberation and immersiveness of the music. I've tried all these things over the years, and I've never found any validity in any of them, but they are fun to try. Now, there's also big scams out there, and what I will say is, if you're someone looking at hi-fi audio and you find a deal online that's almost too good to be true, and the dealer looks legit, they have a website, and they ask you to wire the money to them for this deal, I would say no go unless you know the dealer and you know they're reputable. There's a lot of websites that can be put up very easily with fake products and checkout buttons and phone numbers, and you can call and they can say, yeah, I have this $50,000 amp, I'll give it to you for 27. If you wire me the money, I'll save on credit card fees. A lot of people have gotten scammed that way, and I would just say watch out for those kind of operations. They're few and far between. The price is too good to be true on a new product that's high-end, especially because these scammers like to get the most out of the scam, and they're asking you to wire the money. Don't do it, because you might just get ripped off. If anything, use a credit card. I always try to use credit cards if I'm buying high-end gear, because if there's any issue, I could go to my credit card company and say, hey, this guy never sent me the product, or hey, he sent me an empty box. There was a time I remember I ordered a $5,000 camera from Amazon, and it came, and inside the box was a cheap, used, broken Canon Rebel, which was their $800 camera. Oh, it was such a crazy thing, and there was something going on at Amazon where people were putting rocks in expensive camera bodies at the warehouse and stealing the cameras. There were videos about it, and I got taken by that scam. That's a totally different thing. So yeah, always use a credit card if you're buying high-end. Never wire to someone. That way you have recourse with your credit card companies, because unfortunately, in this day and age, there are always people out there looking to take advantage and take what is yours. Let's keep moving on. Now, it took me 38 years to learn this into my 40-year journey, but I've heard, my goodness, I would have to say, I can't even begin to guess. I've heard many, many speakers in my lifetime, a huge amount of speakers in my lifetime. Most of them, 99% of them, of the typical boxed variety, right? The Sonus Faber Guarneri, still one of my favorite speakers. The Fleetwood DeVilles, I love those speakers. I love some of the Klipsch designs, even though they're not the most refined. The Klipsch La Scala, I love that speaker. The Cornwalls are awesome. There's been a ton of speakers that I've loved in this lifetime. Dyne Audio Special 40, Dyne Audio Heritage Specials, Merlins. I used to love Merlin speakers back in the 90s as well. But all of those speakers have one thing in common. They're all box speakers. And a couple of years ago, I finally got to listen to a semi-open baffle design with the Closer Acoustics Augie and Bob combo. Now, I still have the Bobs here. Closer is sending me something new from them that improves on that system this year, sometime in the next month or two, I believe. But then I heard the Qualio IQs, which blew me away a little bit more, right? They had the bass was in a box, but the mid and tweeter were open baffle dipole. And that really intrigued me. The sound in the room became even more immersive and three-dimensional. And then I heard these Pure Audio Project Duet 15s. I bought a pair of them. And these, every day I listen to them, I love them more and more. It's taken me all this time to discover open baffle speakers and just how special they are. And these are really special speakers. And while they sound a little bit different, quite a bit different in some ways from a box speaker, and they look a lot different from a box speaker, there's some kind of magic going on with these from Pure Audio Project. Everything that I've often, in these 40 years till I found these, I've always been searching for a sound that has rich, lifelike vocals that seem present in the room with a clarity yet a fullness. I look for a little bit of warmth and glow in the sound. I like a big, wide, deep, and tall sound stage. I like when I can hear layers of music and texture. I like solid, tight, but plumpish bass that I can feel that's visceral. I like a mid-range to come out a little bit into the room rather than be recessed. These Duet 15s, being open baffle, they do all of that. They're such a sweet, sweet speaker. And these are not $100,000, $50,000, $20,000 speakers. They're like $6,900 or something, depending on how you configure them. I think you can go from 64 to 74 or something like that. But these are remarkable. And open baffle speakers really, really changed my listening experience and blew my mind 38 years into the hobby. And now 40 years into the hobby, I have this set of speakers that will be here for the rest of my days. And there's somebody out there laughing, haha, yeah, you'll sell them in a month. Nope, these are not going anywhere. These are magical, beautiful speakers. So yeah, Pure Audio Project. There's other open baffle speakers. You don't have to go to Pure Audio Project. They're spatial, right? There's other brands that have a good following and are very respected. So just do some research online. I just happen to love these, the way they look and the way they sound. So yeah, check out some open baffle speakers. Let me say though, I still love box designs. It's a little bit of a different experience versus open baffle. Open baffle brings everything into the room in a big way. And yet I like listening to box speakers like the ones I just reviewed, the Victorias. It's interesting. It's interesting, all of the choice we have today. But right now, at this time in my life, I am a big, big fan of open baffle speakers. All right, well, I think we have two more to go. And I want to talk about just over the 40 years of how much fun I've had with this hobby. You know, when I started, like I said, I bought that system. I actually got it from a rent-a-center back when I was 16, and I paid weekly payments on it from working at my job. I just wanted to listen to music. And over the years, the discovery, going to the shops, meeting dealers, becoming friends with some dealers, meeting fellow audiophiles and becoming friends with fellow audiophiles over all these years, meeting some incredible people. Everything about it has just been fun It has been mind-opening. It has been enriching. It has been fulfilling. Listening to music in such a way that brings you into the performance. There's a lot of people who don't care how they listen to music. And then there's people who are 100 times more extreme than I am with their music preferences. But one thing that has remained constant, even when I lost money, even when I said, oh, this sounds like crap, it's been fun. It's been an experience, and it's been a learning experience. So when you're doing this for this amount of time and you don't get tired of it, that means there's something within you that brings this to you, right? I'm just drawn to music and music reproduction, and I have been for all this time, and I never get tired of it. So this hobby can be extremely fun, and this year I'm going to go to Expona for the first time, and that's going to be another fun experience. So I'll be there covering the show a little bit and hopefully meeting some of you. So I'll hope to see you there. So the last thing right here, and there's more, but these are just the things that pop into my head. And I've said this again and again and again. I read reviews sometimes, I watch reviews sometimes, I read the forums sometimes, and there's always a lot of talk about the best. This is the best. No, this is the best. Somebody asks about, what do you think of this amp? And there'll be like 20 replies with 20 different recommendations. No, this is the best. No, this is the best. This blows away this. Once you get into the high-end realm, say prices of, I'll just say 7,500 and up to 100,000. Once you get into those higher end realms, nothing is going to be bad, probably, unless you pair it with the wrong gear. Everything should be well made, everything should look really cool, and everything should sound good. But one thing to note is once you get into the high-end realm of audio, everything you get, you can buy 3 integrated amplifiers from 3 different brands, and they're going to sound different. Sometimes they can sound extremely different. I have a T+A PA3100 HV integrated amp here now. It's considered one of the best in the world. It sounds like no other integrated amp I've ever had in this room. And I mean, it's completely different, and it's a good way. But I'm not going to call it the best, because in reality, the best doesn't exist. Of the 3 amps you can buy, say, that are all, say, $20,000, and you listen to them all, they're all going to sound different. That doesn't mean one's going to be the best. They're all going to be different. And if you put 5 people in a room, 3 people might pick 3 different of the amps to be their best, because everybody has different tastes. So there's no such thing as the best in high-end audio. High-end audio should all be the best. If we're paying this kind of money for something, it should be the best automatically. Amp A at $15,000 might sound a little warm, a little large, a little beefy in the mid-range. Amp 2 might sound recessed in the mid-range, a little brighter up top and leaner, tighter in the bass. Amp 3 might be in between both, or even offer a tube flavor. And they're all going to sound excellent to some people, and they will be the best to some people. But it's not going to be the best to all. So there is no best for everyone, because everyone prefers a different, little bit of kind of different sound signature. I know people who like warm, floppy, flabby bass. I know people who like lean, tight, controlled bass. I know people who like a soft, glowy mid-range. I know people who like a sharp, forward attack mid-range. So the best doesn't exist. Don't get caught up when you read reviews and somebody says this is the best, because it doesn't exist. The best doesn't exist. The best can exist for you. The best can exist for me, but the best cannot exist for all. So those were my 10 things that I've learned over the last 40 years being into audio. And if you guys out there, those of you who've been in this a long time like me, leave your tips in the comments. Maybe something I missed. What is your advice to those getting into hi-fi, right? It's always nice to share experience, and I welcome that experience from all of you watching. So feel free to leave a comment below. Hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Feel free to share it, and make sure you subscribe if you want to see more new videos.